My sister said she couldn't have kids, so I gave her my eggs, then she lied. My sister told me she couldn't have kids. She cried in my kitchen and begged me to help. I said yes without thinking. I loved her and I wanted to save her from that grief. She said it was PCOS and she couldn't carry. She said IVF had failed and adoption was too slow. We sat in a lawyer's office and drafted a plan. She promised I would be in the kid's life, that I would be acknowledged as the genetic parent, and that we'd document everything. She signed first, I signed second. The clinic appointment felt unreal. They numbed me, they harvested my eggs, and I slept through the recovery. She texted photos from the waiting room with her husband. They were smiling into the camera like everything was getting fixed. We agreed on names on paper and witnesses. Her name on the birth certificate would be hers. I would be listed as donor, but there would be an agreement about disclosure and visitation. She hugged me afterward and said we were family forever. I believed her because I had no reason not to. During the pregnancy, she asked for privacy. She said she wanted to protect the baby from public attention until it was ready. I waited. I sent knitted booties and prenatal vitamins and soft blankets. When the baby was born, she sent a photo, a tiny face, full cheeks, a perfect button nose. I drove to the hospital to visit. Her husband met me at the entrance and said they'd agreed on privacy. He said the baby bonding time was important and they'd call. I left the hospital trusting them. Weeks passed. Texts went unanswered. I kept sending photos and small gifts. They were returned unopened with a note saying they appreciated the thought. People asked how the pregnancy went. My parents said they hadn't heard anything and assumed it was private. Then I saw a post. My sister announced the birth with a long message about how she and her husband had waited and prayed and finally had a miracle. The post thanked God, not me. Nobody tagged me, nobody mentioned the agreement. I called my sister. Her voicemail said she would be in touch soon. When I asked for one short visit, her husband sent a text asking me to respect their privacy. That night, my phone pinged with a forwarded screenshot from my mother. Mom said they had asked me to be quiet and that it was better for everyone. She said I needed to back off. I went to the park near their house and watched from a bench. I watched her push the baby stroller and laugh at something her husband said. The baby was asleep and I saw a birthmark on the cheek. It was the same birthmark I had as a kid. My chest tightened. I texted her a photo of my old birthmark and asked if the baby had it too. No answer. I waited 3 days and called. Her husband picked up and told me not to come around anymore. He said the family was overwhelmed and it wasn't my place. I messaged our parents asking if they'd seen any of the agreement papers. My mother said she hadn't, that maybe I had misremembered. I dug through my email. There was a noisy folder, half my messages archived, but nothing about the agreement. I went to the lawyer who had sat with us that day. She brought out a file and we both flipped through pages until her face went still. There was a notarized agreement in the file, but the signature next to mine was different. The lawyer explained someone had replaced the signed page. The notarization stamp was real, but the signature on the copy she had was forged. My world tipped sideways. Someone had removed my rights without telling me. I pushed for answers. The lawyer said she would contact the clinic and pull records. The clinic sent me a packet. It had the IVF consent forms, the embryo transfer paperwork, and the clinic's notes. One line made my stomach drop. The lab had listed me as anonymous donor on the transfer sheet, but the original signed consent I remembered had been for a known donor arrangement. I called my sister and asked why the forms were different. She accused me of lying and told me to stop harassing her family. She texted my husband saying I was unstable. People who had been my friends called to check on me. Nervous. My messages turned into accusations in a group chat with family. My father told me I was causing stress during a vulnerable time. My sister took the baby to her parents' house and posted a family photo. No one in the photo looked back at me when I asked if I could come to tea. One afternoon, I found a comment on her public profile from someone asking if she had used a donor. She replied that it was a private medical matter and she preferred not to discuss it. I asked the clinic for genetic records. They said the samples were labeled with a donor code and that the recipient had chosen anonymous donor status. I told them that couldn't be right. I had ID, a matching code, and witnesses. They referred me to Hospital Legal. Hospital Legal sent an email saying the clinic had followed consent as presented. I printed the emails, stacked them, and sat on the floor of my kitchen with my head in my hands. I felt small and stupid for trusting. Then something shifted. My sister posted a video of the baby laughing in a swing, and I noticed the exact way the baby opened its mouth when amused. My sister's laugh echoed in the video. That same laugh had been at family dinners when I was a kid. I copied the video onto a drive. I had started recording family traits, little things that linked the child to me. I bought a home DNA kit online for a paternity test. It felt illegal and desperate, but I couldn't breathe otherwise. A friend of mine worked in pediatric care, and she said she could do a cheek swab at the clinic if I explained it as a routine check. I lied and said it was for a school placement. At the clinic, the nurse took a swab from the baby with no questions because the paperwork looked normal. My heart hammered the entire time. My hands shook. 2 weeks later, the test arrived via email. My name was listed as 99.9% match for the child. The results were plain and unmoving. I was the child's genetic mother. I called my sister and told her I had the test. She screamed and said I'd stolen privacy and that I'd harmed her family. Our parents got a call from her and they came down like a storm. My mom's voice was thin and sharp on the phone asking why I'd done this. My father stood in the doorway of our childhood home and said maybe I'd gone too far. I said I had the right to know if I was a parent. We argued in my mother's kitchen with heating on and pancakes burning. My mother accused me of betrayal and of being dramatic. My sister posted a statement online calling me a liar and a stalker. She accused me of violating their privacy and trying to destroy the family. Friends started taking sides. Some messaged to say they were shocked. A few blocked me. Then the lawyer called and said we had more leverage than I thought. The DNA test legally proved biological motherhood in most courts. She said I could file for parental recognition and visitation rights. She cautioned me about the emotional cost and the family torn in the middle. My sister's husband said he would fight me in court. He said the childbirth gave them legal standing as the family unit. I filed paperwork anyway. I wanted my child to know me, even if the rest of them hated me for it. The court set a hearing and ordered temporary supervised contact. The judge wanted to know why the donor agreement had been swapped and why I was blocked. At the hearing, my sister's lawyer said my actions were reckless. They argued the child needed stability, and that exposing the truth would harm the kid. My lawyer stood and produced a notarized page from the clinic. It had dates, times, and the clinic nurse's stamp that matched my recollection. The judge looked at the documents, and then looked at my sister. The courtroom felt thick, and my throat was dry. She broke down in front of everyone. She said she'd felt trapped, desperate, and ashamed. Then she said a sentence that cut me raw. She admitted she'd wanted a normal life, and thought if no one knew where the baby came from, nobody would judge her. Her husband started shaking his head. He said he wanted a family without drama. My parents sat silent and ashamed. They had been the ones who pushed for silence because of appearances. The judge ordered mediation and mandated counseling for all of us. He said the child deserved honesty and a safe environment. For the first month after the court decision, contact was supervised. I sat in a room with a social worker and watched my child sleep in a plastic bassinet. The child opened their eyes and blinked slowly. My chest tightened, with the strangest mix of love and anger. I touched the tiny hand through a glove and felt breathless. The social worker said to speak softly and keep visits short. I took a photo through the glass and sent it to my mother. She texted back a heart emoji and nothing else. My sister sent a single message: "Don't take him away." I replayed it and felt the bile rise. She had him. Because of me, weeks became months of supervised visits. I learned how the baby moved, what toys they liked, how they calmed down when I hummed a lullaby my mother taught us. People told me I needed to move on. They said it would be less painful to accept being dismissed, but the child looked like me in the morning light. That look became the anchor I clung to. Therapy helped me untangle why I stayed. My therapist said this was about being seen and not erased. My sister started therapy too, but she kept telling the therapist the narrative that benefited her. She painted me as selfish, a woman who couldn't respect boundaries. The court eventually recognized my parental rights as genetic mother with supervised custody. It wasn't full custody, but I had scheduled time and the legal right to be known. The ruling forced my sister to admit to family members what had happened. She told them she had used my eggs and then hid that fact because she was ashamed. My parents apologized in a way that felt brittle. They said they were sorry they had not protected me earlier. My sister filed an appeal and the case dragged for months. During that time, she posted private messages to friends, painting me as unstable. People in our circle stopped inviting me to gatherings. It felt deliberate and cold. Then one afternoon, my sister texted a photo of the baby at a park. She wrote, "He's happy, he's loved." I replied, "So am I." No answer. The child learned my voice. When I hummed a song, their fingers tightened. When I left after visits, they fussed and reached for me. After the court ruling, I started to take my visits home. Slowly, under supervision, then expanding. It wasn't easy. My sister's anger didn't vanish. She watched every interaction as if waiting for me to fail. She criticized my choices about feeding and carrying and name suggestions. She ringed the house with rules that made little sense to me. But I was there more and more. The child slept on my chest once during a supervised late afternoon, and I cried because it felt like a small victory. I started to keep a journal of milestones she would never see in her cruelty. First laugh, first word, first step written down in my handwriting. People asked why I didn't walk away. I told them because this was my child, and because this is what love looked like for me. My sister made it hard to be family. She withheld milestones from social media sometimes to spite me. Sometimes she made the child call her name when they wanted to call mine. It was childish and painful. But then one day the baby crawled across the floor and hugged my knee without prompting. I felt both vindicated and terrified. My sister stood at the doorway and watched with a mix of rage and something like relief. She couldn't stop the bond forming when the child chose me. Months later, she calmed a little. She started showing up to mediations without the same fire. A therapist told me she might be learning to live with the consequences of her choices. I didn't want to hope too much because hope felt dangerous. We had barbed phone calls where she accused me of theft and I accused her of cowardice. We both said terrible things. Then she called my mother and cried about how lonely she was. My mother told her to stop. No permission for that kind of manipulation anymore. I negotiated boundaries with the help of our lawyers and the court. No social media posts about the child, respectful language in front of the kid, and agreed parenting classes. The court laughed at nothing and at everything during hearings, but it also gave me a legal path to be present in this child's life. Today I have weekends with the child and time during the week. I have photos on my phone and teeth marks on my favorite sweater. My sister still refuses to say I am the genetic mother in public. She will not give me credit in family gatherings, and sometimes she refuses to show up. My parents visit less than I expected they would. They are learning their own lessons slowly. I bought a small house close to their neighborhood so the child didn't feel dislocated. I painted a room soft green and filled it with books and stuffed animals. People say I was brave. I don't feel brave. I feel tired and stubborn and oddly grateful. I thought the money and the paperwork would matter more, but the thing that changed everything was a little plastic swab and a piece of paper with numbers on it. The test forced the truth into the open. It made denials unsustainable. If I could give advice to anyone, I would say document everything and get legal counsel before you donate. I would also say that love does not mean giving up your voice. I still see my sister sometimes, and sometimes I don't. We exist now in a new family shape with sharp edges and soft places. The child calls me by a name we agreed on in court. They call me when they want comfort and reach for me when they wake up crying. I don't know if we'll ever heal fully, but I know the child will grow with choices. The last time we sat at the park together, the child pointed at a duck and laughed with the exact way my mother used to laugh. I felt a complicated peace. I still don't know if I can forgive my sister, but I know I'm a mother to someone who needs me, and I won't walk away from that.